Okay, let's unpack this. If you're serious, I mean really serious about music production, you know that the difference between a demo and a professional sounding track often comes down to structure.
Mm, absolutely.
And we're not talking about arrangement here. We're talking about the actual infrastructure of your mix.
Mm-hmm.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into bus architecture. It's basically how the pros build a high-speed, reliable highway system for their audio signals.
It's such foundational knowledge, you know. A lot of people learning will focus on the latest creative plugins, but mastering your bus structure,
Yeah.
that's what gives you technical stability.
It reduces strain on your computer.
Exactly. And critically, it gives you so much creative leverage. It's the key to getting that tight, polished, cohesive sound that just defines a professional track.
So our mission today is pretty simple. We've pulled insights from top mixing engineers' templates to hand you the exact organizational roadmap, something you could save as a default template, like right now.
And you'll mix faster, and your tracks will sound instantly more unified.
So before we start routing everything, let's just address the big common question. If I could put compressor on every single track, why should I even bother grouping them?
It's a fair question.
I remember when I started, I tried to keep everything separate. I thought it was giving me more control, but really it just ended up being a massive, complicated mess.
You were taking the scenic back roads when what you really needed was the superhighway. And the difference that grouping makes is it's just transformative. It works across, I'd say, three main areas: efficiency, cohesion, and high-level control.
Let's start with efficiency, because that's where your computer will thank you.
Yeah.
Imagine you've got, say, 8 individual drum tracks, kick, snare top, snare bottom, a few hi-hats, 2 percussion tracks.
A pretty standard setup.
Right. And you want them all to have that same vintage EQ and a bit of light compression.
If you do that individually, that's 16 plugin instances right there. High-quality ones, just eating up resources.
But if you send those 8 signals to one single D-drum BES, you apply that EQ and that compressor just once.
You've just saved 15 plugin instances. And for massive sessions, like in Tech House, where you might have 80 or 100 tracks, this isn't just nice to have, it's essential for performance.
The technical side is huge, but the creative payoff, the real aha moment, that's cohesion. People call it the glue.
Yes.
Our source material really hammers this point home. When multiple sounds get processed by the exact same compressor at the exact same time, they stop sounding like separate elements.
They start sounding like a single unified instrument. That processing literally binds them together.
Think of a real drum kit.
Exactly. You want the kick and the snare to sound like they were played in the same room,
Right.
with the same dynamic vibe. Applying one bus compressor means they're actually breathing together.
That's the hallmark of a pro mix, that tight energy you hear from acts like Camel Fat. It's not 30 separate compressors.
No, it's them processing main sections: drums, bass, synths as cohesive groups.
And then there's the control. It just simplifies your fader management so much. Your entire rhythm section is on one DRUM BUS, so you have one volume fader to ride that whole section.
No more trying to grab 8 faders at once to bring the drums down by just 1 dB. It gives you that instant macro-level command over the mix balance.
So we've covered the why, but efficiency is kind of useless without a system. We need the blueprint, and this is the exact structure, the main signal hierarchy you should aim to replicate and then template immediately.
A reliable signal flow just frees up your mental energy. You're not making it up as you go. You know exactly where every new sound belongs, which just eliminates that decision fatigue before you even start mixing.
Okay, so at the very top, you've got your master fader. Everything flows into it. But right below that, we build our 6 main pillars, the main buses. First up, the DRUM BUS. This is the workhorse. It's getting the kick, the clapper snare, your hi-hats, all the percussion.
All your rhythmic foundation.
Second, the bass BUS. This usually handles both your deep sub-bass and your higher, more audible mid-bass elements. Third, the synth BUS. This is for all your melodic, top-line stuff, leads, plucks, stabs.
All the main harmonic content.
Fourth is the PA BUS. This manages all your background textures, your main pads, any atmospheric sounds that fill out the soundscape. Then number 5, the FX BUS. This is for all your transitions, your risers, impacts, sweeps, that kind of thing.
The ear candy.
And finally, number 6, the vocal BUS, if you have one. This is dedicated to your lead vocal, maybe some vocal chops, background harmonies. These 6 highways all feed directly into the master.
And notice how this structure just mirrors the key parts of the track. You stop mixing individual sounds and you start mixing the drums against the bass against the synths. It just shifts your whole perspective.
Okay, so how do we actually build this? Our sources point to 2 main ways to do it in most DAWs. The first, and the one pros generally prefer, is the O-track method. So if you're in a DW like Logic or Ableton or Pro Tools, you'd manually create a new auxiliary channel strip in your mixer.
You rename it, let's say drums, and then you change the output of your individual drum tracks, your kick, your snare, from their default stereo out to a specific bus number, like bus 1. And that bus 1 becomes the input for your new O-track.
That separation is so important. The O-track method gives you the most flexibility later on.
Why is that?
Because your individual tracks still have their original channel for other things, like sending to a reverb or a delay, and that new O channel can itself be routed independently, which you'll need for more complex side chaining or the advanced parallel stuff we'll talk about.
Right. Okay, so the second method, which is a bit faster and maybe better for beginners, is the summing stack or group track method. You just select your tracks, hit something like create track stack or group, and bam, the DW makes a folder with a new master fader for those tracks. It's a great starting point for just getting organized, for sure.
Yeah.
But if you really want to get into the complex parallel processing, which is a huge part of professional work, that explicit O-track writing just gives you superior control. It really pays to learn the O method from day one.
Okay, the system is built. Now for the fun part, processing the traffic. What do we actually put on these buses?
Yeah.
Based on the source analysis, the standard chain is pretty consistent. You start with EQ for cleanup, then glue compression, and then maybe some optional saturation.
It's a logical flow. Clean it up, control the dynamics, then add character. In that order.
Let's do a deep dive on the drum BOS. The EQ here is subtle. We're not doing big creative boosts.
No, these are corrective moves.
You'd start with a gentle high-pass filter around 30 hertz, just enough to get rid of that subsonic rumble that's only eating up headroom.
Right.
Then maybe a very gentle broad curve, a broad Q with about a +1 dB boost at 100 hertz, just to add some overall body to the low mids.
That just sets the stage perfectly for the glue compression.
Exactly. So why is glue the goal here? And why do our sources recommend such specific settings?
It's all about keeping the punch while getting consistency. The settings are designed to let the initial hit of the sound come through untouched, and then just gently grab the body of the sound. The most critical detail is the attack time, usually around 30 milliseconds.
And why 30 milliseconds? That seems kind of slow.
It is slow, and that's the point. That attack time is slow enough to let the transient, that sharp initial crack of the snare or the punch of the kick two, pass right through before the compressor really clamps down.
Ah, so if the attack was faster, say 5 milliseconds.
You'd be eating that punch. You'd squash it. By letting that initial energy through, you keep the dynamics while the compressor subtly binds the rest of the sound together. That's what gives you that unified pulse.
And you want a moderate ratio, maybe 4.1, and you're only aiming for, what, 2 to 3 dBs of gain reduction?
Max. Any more, and you're squashing, you're not gluing. And then maybe you can add a little saturation. An analog modeling plugin with a low drive, blended in at maybe 30%, just to give the drums a sense of warmth.
Okay, now for the bass S BUS, our sources suggest this one gets treated pretty differently. The compression needs to be a lot tighter.
Exactly. Bass is your foundation. It has to be absolutely rock solid and consistent, so we need faster control.
So the attack time gets shorter.
Much shorter. It often shrinks down to around 5 milliseconds, and the ratio goes up to something like 6.1.
And that 5 millisecond attack is fast enough to control those dynamic spikes right away. And you can push the gain reduction harder, maybe 4 to 5 decores, because that consistency in the low end is everything.
And for the bass bus, saturation is not optional. It is essential.
Not just for tone, right?
No, it's about survival in the real world. Saturation adds higher order harmonics, which are basically mid-range frequencies. If someone listening on a phone speaker or a tiny laptop, those speakers can't reproduce the sub-bass, but they can reproduce the harmonics you added.
So that's how the bass presence cuts through on small speakers.
That's the trick. It ensures your bass translates everywhere.
Okay, finally, the SYNth BUS. This one seems to need a lot of corrective EQ to make space. You've got to aggressively high-pass the synths, sometimes up to 250 or even 300 hertz. Why are we cutting away all that low-mid energy?
Because the bass needs that sonic real estate. It's as simple as that. If your synths are roaring down in the 200 hertz range, they're just fighting the sub and the mid bass for dominance.
It creates mud.
It creates mud. So by high-passing the synths, you clear that out, you get clarity, and you prevent that low-end buildup that can just overwhelm your master bus. It's just proactive conflict avoidance.
And the compression here is the lightest of all, a really gentle 2.2.1 or 3.2.1 ratio, and we're only aiming for 1 or 2 dB of reduction.
Yeah, you're just taming any little peaks. You don't want to squash the dynamics of your melodic parts. And before we move on, let's just hammer home one foundational rule from our sources. During the entire mix process, your master fader should be completely empty, no processing.
Right. And you have to make sure your mix is peaking no higher than a Mata 6 dBFS.
You need that headroom for the mastering stage later. It's non-negotiable.
Okay, so this is where we move from just good mixing to, professional mixing. Once you have this standard architecture down, you unlock the advanced concept of parallel processing.
Parallel processing is the technique that gives you that massive sound density without killing your dynamics. It's the pro solution for getting things loud and thick while keeping that initial crisp punch.
So to define it simply, you take a duplicate or a parallel copy of your signal. You process that copy to the absolute extreme.
I mean, crushing it, distorting it, doing things you would never, ever do to the original signal.
And then you slowly blend that crushed copy back underneath the clean original sound. Let's use the classic example. Parallel drum compression, sometimes called drums crush. You would send your original dynamic drum tracks to a brand new auxiliary channel, let's call it drums crush, at unity gain, so 0 dB. And on this new O track, you just destroy the signal with a compressor.
We are talking extreme settings, a ratio of 10.2/1 or even higher, fast attack like 1 to 5 milliseconds, fast release maybe 50 milliseconds, and you crank the threshold way down to nec to 20 dB or even lower. The signal coming out of that crush bus is just thick, distorted, dense. It's like a giant compressed wave of sound.
It sounds awful by itself, but here's the magic. I like to think of it like HDR photography. Your original drum tracks are the clean photo with perfect dynamic range, all those beautiful transients.
Then the crush track is that highly saturated, thick layer of color and weight.
Exactly. You slowly bring up the fader of that crush bus and just blend it underneath the clean original.
The original signal keeps its life, its punch, its transients, but that crush copy adds all that thickness, sustain, and weight to the body of the sound. It makes the drums feel huge and in your face without ruining the crack of the snare.
And this technique is so versatile. Our sources mention using it on the bass bus to add aggressive harmonics.
Stuff you wouldn't want on the main bass line.
And especially on the vocal bus, where parallel compression can give you this relentless presence and energy without making the lead vocal sound over-limited and squashed. It really is a power technique. Phew. Okay, that was the full roadmap. If you implement this system, your mixing workflow is going to get so much more efficient, basically overnight. So here are the 4 key actions to take away. 1, start thinking structurally. Buses are absolutely essential for CPU efficiency and creating that mix cohesion, that glue.
Absolutely.
2, use the 6-bus standard template, drums, bass, synths, pads, FX, vocals, and template it using that O-track method for the most flexibility. 3, implement the standard processing chain. EQ for cleanup, glue compression, and remember that critical 30 meters attack for drums, and then saturation where you need it.
Yeah.
And 4, start exploring parallel processing. Use it to layer in power and density without flattening out the cruise dynamics of your mix.
But this entire structural framework, it really depends on one deeper and maybe less glamorous topic that our source material mentioned, gain staging.
Ah, yes, the part that everyone wants to skip but really, really shouldn't.
Indeed. We've just built this beautiful, clean highway system. But if your signal levels, your gain are all over the place or way too hot as they enter those buses, you're going to get clipping, noise, and you'll just undermine all the careful work we've just discussed.
That's the foundation.
Proper gain staging is the absolutely necessary foundation of everything. Get it wrong, and nothing else matters.
So your provocative next step is this. Go build your template today, but then commit to researching how to properly gain stage every single signal before it even hits those buses.
Get that foundation right, and your new bus architecture will truly shine.
Until you start the next deep dive into your own production workflow, keep mixing.